Hi everyone, so welcome to week number 2 on the 3 substitutions. This week we're going to be talking about the substitution of the meats that you're eating. So if you are a meat eater, why not make it a better choice? So cows, a lot of the meat that we eat come from cows or lambs or those kind of things. Sometimes chicken and fish, etc. So the meat is a very important part of our diet if you choose to eat that. But what's the source? So I always say, cows, what are cows supposed to eat? They're supposed to eat grass. What are the majority of cows that you're getting on the grocery shelves for all their different cuts? They've all been force-fed, genetically modified grains, so they're feeding them corn and soy and all these other things that they're not supposed to eat. So if I started force-feeding humans a bunch of stuff that they're not supposed to eat, they're going to get sick, they're going to get overweight, etc. And they're doing that to our cows to plump them up, make them fatter, it's cheaper, etc., etc. They're in cages, bad environments, all that stuff. So they need to give them prophylactically antibiotics so they're not getting sick all the time. There's pesticides, there's GMO inside the things that they're eating, and all that stuff is going to bioaccumulate in their fat, etc. And so, the more up the food chain you go, meaning if you just eat the plant, it might have a little bit on it, but if this cow ate like 500 pounds of that over the course of a few years, then he's bioaccumulating more and more of those toxins, and that's all going to be found in the meat that you're eating. So obviously, like the stress hormones, they know they're going to be going to slaughter, all that kind of stuff. So in the big picture of things, we ideally like to find cows that are grass-fed. So there are certain farms, and you can find certain things even in the more mainstream grocery stores. They're there, and so people say, well, it costs a lot more, and it actually does. It costs more to get a cow that's been treated properly, humanely, and it's actually eating what it's supposed to eat. But then I always tell people, ideally you should be eating a little bit less of this kind of meat. The quality is better, so you don't want to be gorging yourself and stuffing your face with meat all the time. But if you're getting a higher quality meat, having it in a little less frequently than you would with the sort of like the off-the-shelf commercial sort of factory farm meat, then we might be finding a good balance there. So what's the big advantage? So it's sometimes hard in Canada because of the weather and stuff like that if the cows are sort of locally sourced. Especially in wintertime, it's hard for them to eat grass, but there are some places that will have hay and things like that, the silage they call it, that they'll make the cows eat that during the wintertime. Because sometimes what they do is a little trick, and they'll say, oh, we're giving you grass-fed beef, so the cow's been eating grass for most of its life, and then in the last month they start feeding it all that junk to plump it up and make it fatter, and they kill it. So there's actually a little trick if you really want to look for it. It should say grass-fed and grass-finished, or sometimes if the other word for that whole process, they call it green-fed cows, so meaning they've only eaten green grass the whole time. So sometimes they add that little trick, and that's really a bit like a subtlety at the end, and it's kind of hard to see if they've actually done that or not, but if you're finding a source, you could actually call them up. So, ideally, if you go to like some of the health food stores, if I go to Ambrosia or Nature's Emporium around here, there's a big section of, organic, grass-fed, different kinds of meats, Beresford Farms, and Life Choices, I think, is another one that I find in Longos and Fortinos and stuff like that. So you can find these if you're looking for them. And chickens and all those kind of things too, you can find organic, free range, look for all that kind of stuff. So like I said, even though that stuff is more expensive, ideally you'd be eating a little less of it. If you have the qualities better and you add more vegetables to your plate and stuff to fill you up with good quality food. So that way, even though it's more expensive, you might eat it less, and in the long run, hopefully it would work out, and for sure it's going to work out for your health. So grass-fed meats, once again, because the cow is eating what's supposed to, it's going to have the proper nutrients in the meat, other than the protein obviously, but the fat ratios, the omega-3, the omega-6 balance, conjugated and linoleic acid, once again, that actually is a fat that helps you burn fat. Arachidonic acid is another one that you find when cows are eating grass, etc. So there's all these good ratios, and everything is sort of found in the proper portions and proportions when the cows are eating the diet that they're supposed to eat. So that helping them, I always say, you're eating what they ate. So if the cows are eating what they're supposed to eat, then you're eating a good thing. If they've been force-fed all the junk, then that's coming into you too, and that's affecting your health as well. And the other thing too, as far as meats, if you're going for fish, just because everything is kind of getting more polluted generally in the world, but the fish, especially the salmon, is a tough one, because salmon is a really good fish, But you really have to look for, make sure that it's like wild caught salmon, because what they're doing now is they're making these great big areas in the ocean. They're actually farming the salmon, and they might be like feeding them genetically modified foods and stuff that they're not supposed to be eating, and then they're actually injecting them with dyes to make them look red. Because there's normally when salmon eat, I think there's I can't remember what the substance, it might be astaxanthin or something like that. It's a special sort of antioxidant that has like a reddish color to it. So when the salmon actually eat a lot of that, that's why their flesh becomes pink or reddish on the inside. So a really healthy salmon should have like a good reddish look to it in the meat. But you know, the farmed ones, sometimes they're kind of a paler pink, and sometimes they're actually, you might even read on the label, it says, you know, color has been added or something. So if you see that, make sure you're not grabbing that one at all. So you have to kind of look and read around for it. So you're looking for wild caught, free range salmon, and of course, not cheap either, but you know, like I say, smaller portions, more vegetables, and then you're on your way to a good meal there. So that's your health tip for this week. The second substitution was change the type of meat that you're eating. So we'll see you next week for substitution number 3.